Have you ever wanted to know the top tips that are going to help you prepare your body for pregnancy and help you get pregnant faster? Well, we're going to be digging into these 7 top fertility tips today. You're on the Premom channel. You're here for all things period, fertility, tracking, ovulation. Everything is here right here at the Premom channel, just to make sure we're giving you the best education you can as you approach your fertility and TTC journey. All right, tip number 1 for improving your fertility, hydration. Actually, keeping your body well hydrated is so important when it comes to trying to conceive. Hydration allows our body basically just to function at the best that it can. Now, very importantly, when it comes to fertility, hydration is going to help support something called cervical mucus production. And cervical mucus, especially when it's this very well-hydrated egg white cervical mucus consistency, that is going to help the sperm actually swim up the cervix and into the uterus and help to meet that egg right where the fallopian tube meets that uterus. So by drinking plenty of water, we're really optimizing our fertility to make sure that A, our body is functioning the best it can, and B, that our cervical mucus is functioning the best it can to support sperm transportation. All right, your second fertility tip from Fertility Doc is to stop smoking. That's right, we want to stop smoking cigarettes and we want to stop smoking medical marijuana. And this is both for you and your partner. Additionally, we want to cut the alcohol. I know that sounds a little intense, but here's why. For starters, when it comes to smoking, we know that cigarette smoke can not only negatively impact fertility, it also can impact fetuses in vitro. So it's a habit you're going to have to kick anyways. Now's a great time to cut it. Also, we know that cigarette smoke can negatively impact sperm production, so it's great for your partner to jump on this bandwagon of not smoking with you. Now, marijuana, I know it has a lot of benefits, but when it comes to fertility, we really want to be careful. It hasn't been researched too much when it comes to fetal growth and development. When it comes to fertility, we're also still looking at studies. Now, what we do know is that THC negatively impacts sperm production. So that we found that there's actually a decrease in motility in sperm. That's the way that they move. So really, THC, marijuana, it's a good thing, just kick to the curb, especially while you're trying to conceive. Then lastly, we get alcohol. It's really not recommended that you drink more than 2 drinks per day. Now, it's really best to drink not at all. The studies are kind of conflicting with evidence of whether it does or does not negatively impact fertility, but there are some studies that do say that alcohol consumption can negatively impact fertility. Therefore, it's a great thing to kind of kick to the curb. Again, you can't drink while you're pregnant, so it's a good thing to use, especially only in moderation if you absolutely must while trying to conceive. All right, your third tip is to watch out for environmental toxins. That's right. Environmental toxins can not only impact your egg quality, but they also can impact the way your hormones work. Toxins are often called something called endocrine disruptors, which means that different kind of chemicals in the environment can affect the way that your hormones naturally cycle. And we'll talk about some preventative tips too. Also, we have toxin accumulation, which can then accumulate in eggs and lead to damage in those as well. So we really want to clean up our environment as much as possible. Our world is actually very, very toxic. It seems kind of clean, but when we dig deep and look at ingredients, we are surrounded constantly by toxins. So some really good places for you to start is to start drinking filtered water. Pesticides and herbicides are actually very commonly linked to egg quality issues and also can impact sperm production. So eating organic as a family is a really good choice. So there's a list called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. The Dirty Dozen are the most heavily sprayed with pesticides foods out there. So if you're on a budget, focus on buying organic of those foods that are in that number 12, that Dirty Dozen. Those are the dirtiest ones, and you're going to make the biggest impact with your dollar if you do organic of those. Lastly, when we're at home and we're trying to limit the use of plastics, let's get rid of plastic water bottles. We really want to decrease our exposure to BPA. Switch over to glass or aluminum water bottles. Also consider taking your plastic Tupperware, throwing that out, and get yourself a good reusable glass Tupperware container. Those are just little swaps that can really make a big difference when it comes to decreasing your environmental toxin exposure. Lastly, when it comes to fragrances, those also can include endocrine disrupting chemicals, and those also can impact your egg quality. So not only are we affecting your hormones and potentially affecting your ovulation, we're also impacting your eggs. So focusing on decreasing your use of fragrance products. So stopping using those fragrance candles. Laundry detergent is actually a huge one. Stop using the fabric softener. Those are usually very, very toxic. In addition, just make sure the soaps and lotions fragrances and perfumes you're using on your body are clean. And again, this is a slow process. Piece by piece, you want to try to decrease your toxic burden and really make sure you're creating a nice clean environment for your body as you approach this trying to conceive journey. All right, tip number 4. Understand your body, okay? So this means digging deeper and starting to understand what's going on. This means you're starting to use ovulation tests and also a basal body temperature thermometer. The more information we can get about what's going on in your body, the more we actually can use to pinpoint your fertile window. Now, ovulation tests are one of my favorite ways to track your cycle. Ovulation tests are going to look for something called luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing, you know what? Let's grab one right here. Luteinizing hormone is the hormone that is going to trigger ovulation. So when we use urinary ovulation tests, we actually can pinpoint when ovulation is about to occur. So if you haven't seen an ovulation test before, they're these cutesy little strips, super easy. You just dunk them in your urine. You take them between 10 and 8 p.m. and they're going to give you a double line. You're going to see this line begin to darken as you approach ovulation. You're looking for a surge in luteinizing hormone. When luteinizing hormone surges, you're likely to ovulate about 24 hours later. So by using ovulation tests, we can know when you are about to ovulate. And this is good because it allows you to perfectly time intercourse. Then we can use things such as a basal body temperature thermometer. The basal body temperature thermometer, you just use it in your mouth once a morning and you're going to look for a BBT spike. Your BBT is going to rise right after ovulation. That's going to help to confirm the ovulation that you just predicted with ovulation tests. So my big tip for fertility is really get to know your cycle. Figure it out. When are you ovulating? Confirm that you're ovulating. These are all really important points when it comes to trying to conceive. You really want to have a good understanding of your body. And doing things like ovulation testing and tracking your BBT can really give you a good idea of exactly what's going on inside. All right, tip number 5. We'll move these to the side. Tip number 5 is to manage your stress. And this may sound like a no-brainer, but it's really important. Stress hormones actually can really negatively impact our sex hormones. So it's absolutely imperative that we make sure we learn how to manage our stress. So this can be very simple things such as using cognitive behavioral therapy, going to counseling, using meditation, using exercise as therapy, finding ways to decrease and manage our stress. Stress is always going to be around us. And in fact, when we become parents, stress seems to increase tenfold. So it's really important that we learn how to manage stress in very healthy ways so it doesn't physically manifest in problematic ways. Again, when we're trying to conceive, we really want to manage that stress because it can suck. Specifically, the hormone progesterone is used to make the hormone cortisol, the same precursors. So if you're stressed, your body wants to support stress first before it's going to support having a baby. I always use the example, if you're running away from a tiger, you're stressed, right? Your cortisol's flowing, your stress hormones are flowing. Do you think your body wants to stop running from that lion and have a baby? No, not really. But if you send your body signals of safety, your body feels calm, your body feels safe, your biology is then going to know that it's a good time to get pregnant. So by managing that stress, we are able to also help our hormone cycle the very best that they can and really let them shine. All right, your 6th fertility tip is sex. When to have it, how often to have it, and how to have it. It's a great question. So sex is really important when it comes to intercourse. We want to time it the 5 days before ovulation and ovulation day. Now, sex every single day in that fertile window, that's 6 days, is quite a lot. Every other day tends to be just right. Studies don't really support an increased chances of conceiving with intercourse every day, so it's really okay to have it about every other day in that fertile window. That being said, the most important days to have sex is ovulation day and that day after. Now, again, this kind of depends on your partner and whether or not they have a semen analysis. But so that's the intercourse timing that's just key for you. Now, when we are kind of digging in and looking at frequency, we talked about every other day. And again, once a day is more than sufficient. We don't necessarily see that more frequency is helpful. And in addition, it actually can decrease sperm volume. So we want to be kind of careful about not overextending our partner in that time period. Also, we know that sperm live for up to 5 days. So if we have sex in those 5 days before ovulation, we know that there's a good likelihood that sperm is going to be around in advance before ovulation, in order to really make sure that we're having our best chances to fertilize that egg. So again, that's why we focus on intercourse the 5 days before ovulation and ovulation day, which is another reason why we want to use these very handy ovulation tests, right? To figure out exactly when we're going to ovulate, so we can make sure we optimize our sex timing. Now let's talk about sex positions, which is the best sex position to get pregnant. Guess what? There's not one. The best sex position is whatever is comfortable for you and your partner and allows you guys to have a wonderful time. And again, ejaculation is essential in order for pregnancy and fertilization. So there's no sex position that's necessarily good or right or helpful specifically for getting pregnant. The most important thing is that you're just timing it correctly with your partner. All right, your last fertility tip is all about BMI and age, okay? So we all know that egg quality does decline with age, all right? This is just a matter of fact. The genetic material in the eggs has been studied and researched, and it degrades over time. So there's only so much we can do to really fight that clock. The peak of fertility is really in the 20s. After the 20s, fertility starts to decrease, egg quality starts to decrease. And then when we enter our 40s, it really drops off quite steeply, right in the early 40s. So it doesn't mean that it's not possible to get pregnant later in life. It just means that it may be harder to get pregnant, and there's potential for increase in genetic abnormalities because of the higher percentage of genetically abnormal eggs. So this is why, A, it's important to think about your timeline when trying to conceive. A, how many kids do you want to have? And what age are you now? And what age do you want to be when you have them? And kind of planning that out in accordance with kind of your life in that respect. Now, it's also important to consider, if maybe this is not a good time or you haven't found the right partner yet, to also consider egg freezing at a younger age, because you're able to store more of your eggs in that younger snapshot with more intact genetic material than potentially waiting for later on in life. So that's a consideration and an option. And the really fun thing about this reproductive technology is we have more and more options as this technology improves. So that's basically where we're looking at age and trying to conceive. Now let's talk about BMI. So BMI is body mass index, and you can find out your BMI super easily by doing a Google search. You add your gender, you add your height, and you add your weight, and it's going to calculate something called the BMI. Now, the best BMI for the best chances of fertility is a BMI between 20 to 25. When we get anywhere below or above that, we start to see issues in fertility, decreased ovulation, and issues with eggs. So we really want to make sure that you're in that healthy zone. So that means eating enough, not being too thin. A lot of times people think, if you're thin, then absolutely it's not an issue, but that actually can stifle and stop ovulation. Your body wants to be in a well-fed state in order to be at the highest amount of fertility. Now, on the other side, when we go more into the overweight and obese category, we also get negative impacts due to insulin dysregulation. Things like that can then stop ovulation and create conditions that impact our fertility. So really making sure that we're zoning in and focusing on a nice, healthy BMI. Those are another key tip when trying to conceive. And again, you want to get there in a healthy way, but that's the perfect range to kind of shoot for when trying to conceive. All right, there you have it. That is 7 tips for improving your fertility from a fertility doctor. If you have comments or questions, definitely comment them below. Definitely like and subscribe. And if you're not already on the Premom app, come join us over there. We're constantly trying to bring you more information, more resources from doctors and nurses. And we're always trying to improve that piece of your fertility journey. Make sure you are supported. Baby dust to all of you, and we'll see you in the comment section below.